Now next, we immediately dive into it, which we're going to have a keynote with the title, Breaking Boundaries with AI. For a second, it sounded like Breaking Bad, but it's not. So, ladies and gentlemen, receive the SVP Corporate and R&D from the ZNF Group, Dirk Wallesser.
Thank you very much.
Big round of applause.
Thank you very much to Saeed of having started Plug and Play. He's doing the right thing. I think he's walking around and looking at the booths. And also, thank you for Startup Autobahn and Sasha to bring us all together. And I would like to welcome you all because you are already breaking boundaries. You stepped out of your office, you stepped out of your home, you stepped out of your technology, you stepped out of your vertical. You're here in order to exchange. And I want to talk about breaking boundaries with AI because I really believe it's not just AI, it's yet another disruption. And I want to talk about 3 breaking boundaries. One is, and we see it here, between the past and the future. And here we are in a production hall of parts and components, and today we are producing ideas and knowledge. So this is the first breaking boundary. The second one is to look beyond your own technology, your own product, your own company. So breaking the boundaries of what you've always been done in your own ecosystem. And the third one, which is the biggest, is breaking boundaries of culture, breaking boundaries with externals. And I would like to start with a disruption. And you know all of this. And it's interesting, if you see around 2020, 2021, 3 things happened. The first thing happened is that we had more data in the cloud than on-premise. So it was available, not in machines, in assets somewhere, and you couldn't connect to it. They're available. Second, computational power. And I'm sorry, there's a misprint here. 2021, we had the power of more than 30 petabytes per second to actually do large language models. And number 3, we had great large language models, so you could train them with 100,000 parameters within less than a year. And that was the birth of ChatGPT-3. And it's not really this technology distribution that really makes a difference. It's a cultural disruption that we all experienced in Christmas, around Christmas holiday season 2022. When the first of us walked around and said, do you see that, ChatGPT-3? I can make a love letter to your girlfriend, we can ask for anything, and it's working. It was a party booster, and that's why it has been a cultural disruption, because everybody knew it once. And that for us at ZF, and I think in all the companies, was really the biggest change. So all of a sudden, we have a cultural revolution, because you didn't have to explain it. You saw that Gen AI is something that will change the world in every workplace, in every plant, in every process that you do. And although we've been working with AI in plants and optimizing workload, optimizing empty seats, for example, to make them full and so on, it was that we realized everybody said we have to do it. And you can see here, right, 2023, a lot of projects we already had in AI swapped to Gen AI. And then they became programs, and now, of course, all the programs and everything that we're doing cannot even fit on that page. So the cultural revolution was something that we took and said, well, let's not just think about autonomous driving, where, of course, you need AI for perception. Let's not only think about cameras and radars, how they can actually detect a pedestrian and so on. Let's start with everybody in the company. So the first thing we did is we made a training session for every employee in the company how to better prompt. So we started with a Copilot, Microsoft 365 Microsoft Copilot, and we had everybody learn how to better prompt so that you're not getting any trash anymore, or not as much trash, that you really get the answer that you're looking for. And then all of a sudden, it was like a plant that flourished. Everybody said, I want to do it. So the sales people said, well, we're going to use Sales Cockpit because that helps us to much faster find out what did we quote last year, what do we actually benefit from the RFQs and so on. So all of a sudden, there was a revolution of different initiatives all over the company. And some of them, of course, you know, because they're something that is provided by, in that case, Microsoft. And we said, well, we don't want to reinvent the wheel, so let's use something that works. And now we get these little startups within the company that start doing it. So one example is what you see here, Wisdom AI. It is using Gen AI to create all the test cases you need and that you don't need. So all of a sudden, all the tests of vehicles for propulsion, for vehicle control systems, for advanced driver systems, all of a sudden we had everything at hand and we could optimize our tests. The biggest revolution really was for us, and the fastest was the GitHub Copilot, and I will talk about that in a minute, a little more. Here I want to show you the story, what AI is doing to a very important product, which is traction control. So what we do is we have a vehicle motion control, so it controls the trajectory of a vehicle. So there's a camera and an HPC that tells us, well, go to this curve with 80 miles per hour, and it's a 90-degree curve. Do it. So the trajectory is executed. That's a pretty tough job, because if it's slippery, if there's pedestrians coming around. So we started with a model-based engineering control that you all know. You use MATLAB Simulink and do a controller. The next step was what we call model predictive control. It was a startup, by the way, called Embotech that said, well, we can optimize much faster. So we increased, and the real-time probability of that algorithm was increased using that startup. And now we have model predictive control in an eco-motion for ACC. So that makes you a trajectory that limits and that reduces the amount of energy that a vehicle is consuming. The next step was AI. What we now do is we use these AI algorithms to optimize all the parameters and the tuning of this vehicle motion control with AI. And you can see that already we gained 50% of tuning time just by optimizing before we put the control algorithm into the vehicle. And now all of a sudden, you don't need many engineers driving the vehicle, braking the vehicle, steering the vehicle, going through bumpy roads and all the tracks. You can do it with AI and play with it. And the last step is we just closed a public-funded project where we can better predict the situation, so you know whether there's a pedestrian really crossing the road or not. So again, AI comes into the game, and now we have an algorithm that is much faster, much more reliable, and that we can work on. So big disruption with Gen AI. I would say within 1.5 years, it's going to the products. Even more disruptive, you know this. This is how the automotive industry develops software and hardware and mechatronic systems since 30 years. It's the so-called V model. So we said, well, why do we all of this? I mean, we have requirements, and then we ask for specifications, and then we do the first tests, and then we do software and so on, all these steps. With Gen AI, you can break the boundary. You can really look at the RFQ and specification, what you want to do, and then not only you get the best specification for a given new requirement, but you also can create the test case, how the vehicle needs to be tested right away. And you can see already how we gain from that. We are not yet doing the software independently, but we can increase the time it takes to develop an algorithm much faster. A big leverage always has been in plants. And we have two major topics. One is, of course, the cost, and it's something that is very important for Germany, for Europe. How can we compete in cost? And AI helps there. And the other one is the shortage of labor. So with Gen AI methods, and I only want to show you one example, we were able to cut down the inventory turnaround from more than 20 days to less than 5 days. In COVID, a lot of plants were starting to stock material because there was shortage, so they were afraid, if I can't ship, I have to increase the inventory, and we had to reduce it again. And with the Gen AI methods that we're using here, we could cut it down from 20 days to 2 days, which, as you know, is a lot of money if you save an inventory. And so all the plants have started optimizing their procedures with AI. And for example, in the supply chain, from shipping a certain material that goes into our plant and goes out then to a customer, we have optimized the transport from 70% utilization to more than 85% utilization. Just having algorithms optimized with Gen AI day by day. What I think is even more disrupting is not just it's not just using AI, but open up the doors, breaking the boundaries to use open source. And there was a lot of reluctance because there's software engineers that like to do software themselves. My software is better than the one that is open source. But also, can I use it? Is it license-free and so on? So now we set up a whole program that open source is embraced and can be used, and we're using it in 90% of our projects already. Open source, it's IP-free, it's reliable, it's been tested, and we can take the liability for it. And the next step is, which goes then towards the new ecosystem, is that we create inner source ecosystem. That means our engineers start doing open source themselves. And there's a lot of little plans that start doing it, and GenAI helps, of course, in order to optimize the software and create it as an inner source very quickly. There's many modes of breaking these boundaries of collaboration. Still, the very important one is to look at new technologies and to create a new company. So we started ourselves, and I'm proud to announce that we are part of the Eclipse Software-Defined Vehicle Foundation in the working group, and we founded together with a partner, KPIT, a company that provides a middleware, which is a software shell that separates hardware from software. So our customers can then build and print their functions and features, like Markus Schäfer was showing, almost independent of hardware. Another step is the soft-defined car, which is a public-funded project. A huge project brings together a lot of industry, a lot of universities. And lately, we have started a collaboration with the University of Stuttgart, proud Stuttgart, as you saw, together with MIT, where we're optimizing in order to do all the development in the vehicle and virtually. Last but not least, and that's something where I'd like to invite you, Certificate is a startup you can see here, optimizing and including all the regulative and the homologation efforts by AI, and we're using and we partner together with Certificate these days. So in a nutshell, we have European elections coming up. If you want to go fast, you can go alone. But if you want to go far, you have to embrace everything that is in our ecosystem. And we have founded a partnership in the European Union for software-defined vehicle, where we believe that if we open source and leverage all the knowledge that is in these booths out there, we are much faster. So let's continue breaking boundaries. Let's continue using AI and still keep our brains on despite of AI. Thank you very much.